Good morning from Athens, Greece. This is my first video update. It is August 15th here in Athens. I am actually at the first national cemetery here in Athens in an area known as Metz. And today is a holiday here in Greece. We are celebrating in the Greek Orthodox religion. We are celebrating the Dormition of the Holy Mother Mary. Today marks the day where the Panagia, the Theotokos, the Holy Mother Mary, she went to sleep, and then she rose to heaven. So today is a very important day on the Orthodox calendar, the Greek Orthodox calendar. I'm not sure if other Orthodox religions celebrate this day as the Dormition of the Panagia, the Theotokos. But let me know in the comments down below if this is also a holiday in other Orthodox countries. This is a very important holiday here in Greece. Athens is a very quiet city today. A lot of people are away from Athens. They're on holiday, or they are taking the day off and celebrating the very important holiday here in Greece. But we are going to talk about the news, and we're going to talk about Elensky's Zaporozhye statement. We are going to talk about an article from The Guardian, which calls for the elimination of Putin, and we'll do a clown world. And in the clown world, we'll talk about who else but Boris Johnson, of course. Boris Johnson is still making clown world episodes. But first, let's talk about Elensky's statement that he gave yesterday, this mobile phone video statement, where Zelenskyy warned Russia that if they shell the Zaporozhye power plant, which they have been in control of since the beginning of the war, if they shell the power plant, then the Ukraine military will also shell and attack that power plant. That was his video statement. And he also said in the video statement, he said for the collective West to continue to provide weapons, because Elenskyy has to make a commission off of something, right? Him and his regime, they have to make money somehow. And he urged the West to provide more HIMARS and javelins and javelinas and all kinds of wonder weapons. So he pleaded with the collective West to provide more weapons. And then he also urged the collective West to sanction the Russian nuclear industry as well. So Elenskyy had his usual demands, which he always has after he concludes one of his video statements. But this was an interesting video appearance from the clown puppet leader, because it was an almost de facto admission that Ukraine has been shelling the power plant and will continue to shell the nuclear power plant, and they are going to continue to shell that nuclear power plant under the cover that the reasons for them to shell the power plant is because Russia is attacking that power plant. So does any of this make any sense whatsoever? The logic that we are supposed to believe from the Zelenskyy statement is that Ukraine will destroy this power plant because Russia is supposedly trying to destroy this power plant. I mean, is that how you solve this crisis? The way to prevent a nuclear catastrophe, according to Elenskyy and the collective West that have provided him this script, the way to solve this crisis is to attack the very power plant that you supposedly don't want to see destroyed, because you claim that the Russians are trying to destroy this power plant. It doesn't. This whole thing is absolutely crazy. It's crazy talk coming from Elenskyy, and it's crazy talk coming from the collective West that is providing Elenskyy his talking points. But what it does do what this statement does do is that it does provide cover for the Elensky regime going forward, because they are going to continue to target this power plant. That's clear now, and they're going to attack this power plant by they're going to justify the attack of this power plant by saying that they're doing it because the Russians are also attacking this power plant. You know, two wrongs make a right, I guess, in this scenario, if you go by their logic. The rational thing to do, if the Russians were indeed trying to destroy the power plant that they control and trying to create a nuclear catastrophe in order to jeopardize the lives of the very people that they have spent 8 years liberating, and I'm talking about Crimea, Donbass, Kherson, and Zaporozhye, the rational thing to do is, if this indeed was the case and Russia was looking to create a nuclear catastrophe in and around this power plant, well, you would engage in diplomacy and dialogue, wouldn't you? Because you're concerned about a nuclear disaster, and so you would do everything in your power to get Russia to stop doing what they're doing. Your answer wouldn't be to also attack that nuclear power plant. If your goal is to prevent a catastrophe, is to prevent the destruction of the nuclear power plant, why would your solution be to also attack that nuclear power plant? Unless, of course, that isn't your goal. Your goal always has been and will continue to be to destroy that nuclear power plant and to cover up your intention to destroy that nuclear power plant by trying to pin the blame on the other side. That's really what's at play here. So I'm not going to harp on this any longer. We all know what's going on here. We all understand the statement from Elensky and what it's meant to do and the cover that it's meant to provide. And the indication that the statement gives, which is that Ukraine, with the tacit support of the collective West, will continue to strike out at this nuclear power plant. That is what this statement is telling us. And they're going to continue to try and pin this all on Russia. And it's going to have the support of the collective West mainstream media. They're going to amplify this narrative, and they're going to now come out with stories saying, yeah, but, you know, Ukraine is now attacking that power plant because they have to, because Russia's attacking that power plant. And a lot of people in the collective West are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. They have to destroy the power plant because Russia's trying to destroy that power plant. That's going to be the the logic that they're going to put forward, and a lot of people are going to buy it. I've no doubt about it. That a lot of people are going to buy it in the collective West. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. What a crazy, insane story, and what a crazy, insane video statement from Elensky. Let's now talk about this Guardian article from Mr. Simon Tisdale, I believe, is the author's name. Man, what happened to the Guardian? What happened to the Guardian? Talk about a fall from grace, a big-time fall from grace. So the title of the article reads, "As Putin's war spreads panic across Europe, Ukrainians must fear a stab in the back." And the byline excerpt says, "Locking up Putin is the only hope of a resolution. It's a strategic aim the West should energetically pursue." Now, in this article from Tisdale, which is a real interesting piece of propaganda and coping, he is really trying to cope with the fact that the collective West is losing the war in Ukraine from all sides. They're losing the ground war because this is a collective West proxy war with Russia. They're losing the ground war. They're losing the economic war. They're losing the energy war. And this article is just pure coping. That's all it is from Tisdale. And the final paragraphs, actually, from from this Guardian author, the final paragraph, sentence, actually says, "Get Putin, take him down, lock him up. That's a strategic aim all could and should energetically pursue." In a nutshell, and a couple paragraphs above that, he says, Biden's right. Putin is a foul ogre, a war criminal, a monstrous throwback from a bygone age. As previously argued here, he is unfit to rule. Well, he has an approval rating of 81%, Mr. Tisdale, which is much, much higher than any collective West leader, that's for sure. But a war criminal, well, this is coming from a collective West which has provided us such great leaders as, and I say great leaders sarcastically, as Tony Blair, George W. Bush, Barack Obama. Who else? Who else can we throw in there? Sarkozy, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Serbia. Do I need to go on? Clinton, the Clintons. I mean, if we're going to talk about war criminals, well, you know, the collective West has given us quite a long list of leaders / war criminals. But you know, Tisdale in this article, he is talking about how NATO should have gotten involved, how the U.S. and the U.K. should have gotten involved militarily in Ukraine, how they had their opportunity during the siege of Kiev. I will give them this: the propaganda scriptwriters, for all the terrible, stupid, ridiculous scripts that they've come up with, the one piece of propaganda, the one script that really did work and continues to work is the siege of Kiev. Because Tisdale argues in this article that the collective West, they had their chance during the siege of Kiev, where Russia was overstretched. The 40,000 Russian troops failed to take over the city of 3 million people, as if the Russian military doesn't know that 40,000 troops cannot possibly take over a city of 3 million people. But anyway, that's beside the point. The collective West had the opportunity to destroy Putin and destroy Russia at that very moment if they had just put boots on the ground or decided to engage the Russians in some sort of airstrike or missile strike or something like that. But they hesitated, and that was the golden opportunity, according to Tisdale, for the collective West to really strike a terrible blow to the Putin regime, and they missed that opportunity. And he argues how NATO should get involved, but, you know, I've been saying this for a while now, and I'll say it once again for Mr. Tisdale. If NATO thought they could win this war, they would have already been in Ukraine. Plain and simple. But what NATO did realize is that they had an army that they had been training for 8 years with more weapons and more money than any NATO army in Europe. They had constructed line after line of fortifications in the Donbass, layers and layers deep. And they realized that we already have the best fighting force on the ground in Ukraine, and it's the Ukraine military. They're well-funded, well-armed, more than any other NATO country could ever be. And they're there, and let's just use them as the proxy to fight this war. And if NATO thought that they could provide troops on the ground to engage with the Russians and beat the Russians, NATO would have done that. They would have done that from day one. They would have done that weeks before the war if they thought they could win. But they knew that NATO wouldn't have made a difference. And they knew that they would be risking an embarrassing NATO defeat. And so they said, you know what? We already have the best military there that NATO can put together. Why should we take the risk and put our own forces on the ground, knowing that the Russians might beat us or the Russians may very well beat us, which would then usher in the collapse of NATO. It would then expose NATO as nothing more than a military-industrial complex racket, or nothing more than an alliance that picks on weaker nations, that bullies and picks on weaker nations. And so that was pretty much the article that he put out there. But the shocking part about it was that he actually calls for the collective West to take out Putin. That's all they've got left, isn't it? They don't have anything more. Their only answer now, because they're losing so badly on all the fronts, their only answer now is to try and take out Putin. So he's actually calling, in this article, he's calling for regime change. He's calling for, I guess, an assassination. I mean, his words: get Putin, take him down, lock him up. Take him down. I mean, take him down can be interpreted in many, many ways, can't it? Lock him up, okay. So that's all they've got now. That is all that they have. The warmongers, the neocons, the neoliberals. Their only answer now to prevent a collapse in this Ukraine project is to somehow, some way, take down, lock up Vladimir Putin. And in this article, he talks about Joe Biden's leadership and how Joe Biden had it right when he gave his speech in Poland, and he talked about how Putin has to go and Putin has to be taken out. He mentions that speech from Biden. I mean, that's when you know someone has really lost their marbles. Is when they start to actually quote speeches from Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son, Joe Bidenopoulos, when they're actually backing up and quoting Biden and actually believe that what Biden is saying is good policy. That's when you know someone has really lost their marbles in a big, big way. Let's see. Biden framed the war as part of a universal struggle between good and evil. Yeah, it is a struggle between good and evil, but you know, I think that Tisdale may be on the wrong side of this. You know, we stand with you, he told Ukrainians. Swift and punishing costs are the only thing that are going to get the Russians to change course. And then Tisdale says that this speech was all words and no action. That was pretty much what he was getting at. He says that Boris Johnson gave speeches that were all words and no action, and that Liz Truss is giving speeches now, and she's not following it up with action. I mean, the whole article is just talking about some sort of collective West response to take out Russia, to get regime change in Russia, to remove Putin, because he's coping. He's coping with full spectrum defeat. So I'll put a link to this article down below so you can read it and come to your own conclusions. I'll stick with what I said in this analysis of this article, and that is that if NATO thought they could win the war, they would have been involved in the war from day one, but they didn't want to take that risk because they knew there was a very, very high probability that they would get destroyed. And the only thing they have left at this point is to try and take out Putin. That's all they have left. That's the only answer. That's the only thing that will save this project. A true Hail Mary moment. And he talks about the siege of Kiev. I'm trying to find the line where he talks about the siege of Kiev and how that was their opportunity to inflict a devastating blow to the Russian war effort. Here we go. It might have been very different had Western politicians found the courage to actively take Ukraine's side in February-March. The chaotic initial Russian drive for Kiev left large troop convoys vulnerable to air attack, a convincing display of Pentagon-style shock and awe, just as Putin was anticipating quick and easy victory could have stopped the entire invasion in its tracks. Okay. The siege of Kiev, man, that thing has gotten a lot of runway. That propaganda narrative, that one has been a good one for him. Ghost of Kiev, the Avenger of Zaporozhye,
Yeah. What else? The goat? The goat of Kiev? But boy, has that siege of Kiev, that one is still being played today. Still, to this moment, they're talking about the siege of Kiev. I have no doubt that Russia would have preferred if, during the first days, the Elensky regime would have collapsed. I mean, obviously, just using basic logic, that would have been optimal for Russia and for this special military operation. But it didn't happen. You know, they didn't get an Zelenskyy regime collapse. And so they continued on with the plan, which was what we're seeing unfold now. And the plan has been working perfectly. I mean, for the most part, probably better than Russia could have ever anticipated, because they're grinding down the Ukraine military. They're gobbling up territory. They've got referendums about to take place in Kherson and Zaporozhye. They've pretty much liberated Donetsk. They have liberated all of Lugansk. The collective West, the economies of the collective West are in tatter. The energy policies of the collective West are in tatters. The rest of the world is outside of Europe. The U.S. is pretty much siding with Russia as well now. So I mean, I think this has gone just as well, just as good as Russia could have wanted it to go. So, you know, yeah, would it have been easier if the Zelenskyy regime just kind of, you know, ran away during the first couple of days? Sure. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and so they just continued on with the plan, which is what you see taking place right now. And this whole siege of Kiev thing, just nonsense. Just pure nonsense is what it is. And if NATO thought they could destroy Russia, they would have jumped in right away. They wouldn't have hesitated one moment. Anyway, we'll end it there. Let's talk about Boris Johnson, Bojo, and his holiday here in Greece. So Boris Johnson, he is in Greece. I'm going to play a video of Boris Johnson hanging out at a supermarket in an area known as Nea Makri, which is kind of on the an east beach area, not far from Athens, not close, but not far. And he was at a supermarket. He had a bunch of security with him. And this was yesterday or Saturday, but you know, we're talking about plus 35 degrees. And Boris Johnson is at the supermarket with a coat, with pretty much a suit but no tie, and he's shopping at this Greek supermarket. You know, did you know that Boris Johnson's father actually has property in Greece? I believe in Pilio, in this area in Athens, in this area in North Greece, known as Pilio, a really beautiful area. And his father has property there. And Boris Johnson is actually very, very far away from where his father has property. But his father was given honorary citizenship as well, from what I understand, just because he's Boris's father. But Boris also speaks ancient Greek, from what I gather, or he tries to speak ancient Greek, or he studied ancient Greek. And supposedly he has a real interest in Greece. But he refuses to give back the Elgin marbles. that he doesn't give back to their rightful home. But supposedly Boris is really keen on Greece. But the clown world is Boris hanging out where I'm hanging out. That's what I got for a clown world today. It's not much, but plus 35 degrees. Boris Johnson shopping in Nea Makri with his suit, holidaying in Athens. There you go. That's the clown world. I'll leave it there. The Duran.locals.com. Check out Alexandra's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Take care.